Hi everyone. Today I'm going to be doing the Synastry chart between Laundrie and Gabby Petito. The reason why I didn't upload this video earlier is because I wanted to find a birth time for either one of them, and I did find a rectified birth time for her based on her solar arc chart as well as transit and her death chart. Now, I know that other astrologers have already done their Synastry chart, but I plugged in all of the asteroids because I feel that it really shows a more detailed picture in the relationship between the two of them. The planets are the main actors in the compatibility chart, and the asteroids are the supporting cast. So it really goes into detail. Now, his Orcus and Lachesis conjuncts her north node 2 and 3 degrees. The north node is a very important part of the Synastry chart. Whatever touches your north node from the other person will be the theme of the relationship for you. And in this case, Orcus has to do with death, and Lachesis is also a death marker. So the theme of the relationship for her ultimately was death. His Pluto and Andreka asteroid conjuncts her Chiron and Ixion 1 degree in the 9th house of Sagittarius. So what this translates into is his Pluto, modern ruler of death, Andreka, that has to do with evilness. And it's conjuncting her Chiron and Ixion in her natal chart. Chiron has to do with pain, and Ixion is a murder asteroid. So Chiron, Ixion conjunction in her natal chart, it means that she's going to have a painful death through murder. And it's in the 9th house that rules long distance travel. Now his Toro conjuncts her Pluto 0 degrees in the 9th house. Toro has to do with menacing and bullying behavior, and Pluto, the modern ruler of death, and also has to do with power and either obsessive or controlling behavior. So we have him being a bully and menacing and obsession by her and controlling behavior. The modern ruler of death, 0 degrees, the tightest orb you can get, and it's in the 9th house, rules travel. Now his Chiron, Requiem and Melpomene, conjuncts her Mars 2 degrees in the 8th house, and the 8th house rules death. It's in the sign of Scorpio, which is ruled by Pluto, the modern ruler of death. So we have his Chiron, pain, Requiem, funeral for the dead, and Melpomene, it means tragedy. So there's this tragedy with a tragic death, a painful tragic death conjuncting her Mars. Mars is the lower octave of Pluto, and Mars also has to do with violent deaths. Now, her Mars squares his Jupiter 2 degrees, and that has to do with rash, impulsive behavior. And Jupiter is the largest planet in the solar system, so it really magnifies what it touches. So in this case, there was a huge lots of power struggles and arguments, and that resulted in a painful death because his Astarte and Mad Hatter conjuncts her Midheaven 3.5 degrees. Astarte has to do with blow-ups and arguments, and Mad Hatter has to do with craziness. You know, the other person acts all crazy, and then they blame you for the craziness involved. And the Midheaven is what the public sees. So that's another important angle in a Synastry chart. The Midheaven, the Ascendant, Descendant, and the IC. His Sato conjuncts her Descendant 1 degree. Sato has to do with sadistic behavior, so that's what he brought to her. It's at 1 degree. Her Sato conjuncts his Sun 0 degrees. The Sun and the Moon, very important part of the Synastry chart. You have to pay attention to what energies are being conjuncted to your personal planets as well as your angles and North Node, like I explained before. So she was sadistic towards him as well. Her Pluto in the ninth house conjuncts his Brian asteroid, PNA. I plug in PNAs all of the time, and it's very fateful and not a coincidence. So we have her Pluto conjuncting his Brian, De Janeiro, and his Mercury, 0 degrees and 2 degrees. So now we have more arguments, control issues. Brian, his name, right in there, and De Janeiro is a victim asteroid. So victimhood and ultimately death. Her Typhoon, her Philomela, conjuncts his moon, 1 degree. Typhoon has to do with overwhelming psychological events or overwhelming physical events that are very overwhelming and disturbing. And Philomela is a victim asteroid. That Philomela was tortured by the man that was supposed to protect her. So, conjuncting his moon, both sides of this relationship, they both brought each other a lot of dissension, and there was arguments and victimhood. It doesn't get any better. Like I said before, the more you start plugging in all of the stars and the asteroid, it forms a picture, and ultimately the picture is finished, and you see the final result of where the relationship is going. And the reason why I decided to do this video is because if I could help someone else avoid a toxic, disastrous relationship, then my job is done. Because I feel it's necessary for risk management to avoid getting involved with someone that won't be good for you, ultimately. His fixed star, her Brian, her Requiem, Funeral for the Dead, and Melpomene, Tragedy, conjuncts her sun, 0 degrees, in her natal chart. So this is almost, to me, written in the stars. Fate. We have his PNA Brian, sheet, tragic, overwhelming energies that are indicative of homicide. Requiem, Funeral for the Dead, and a tragic death. Conjuncting her sun, 0 degrees. You can't get tighter than that. It's the tightest orb. And his sheet star conjuncts her sun, 1 degree. The sun and the moon, like I said before, are very important parts of a synastry chart. Pay attention to what conjuncts your personal planets from the other person. Now, his Phoenix and Lacrimosa conjuncts her moon, 2 degrees, in Leo, ruled by the sun. So we have Phoenix, a death asteroid, and Lacrimosa has to do with tears and sadness, and it conjuncts her moon, 2 degrees. Automatic fail. If I had seen this chart, if I had done this chart for someone and I saw this, I would tell them to end the relationship immediately. Now, her Osiris, Egyptian god of the dead, conjuncts his Agamemnon asteroid, 1 degree, and Agamemnon has to do with sudden homicides or destructive behavior on the mild side, and that's at 1 degree. That's tight. Now, in his natal chart, this is another fateful combination. His Dido conjuncts his Gun asteroid, 0 degrees. You can't get tighter than that. Dido has to do with suicide, and Gun, self-explanatory. Yes, there is an asteroid called Gun. So we have suicide by firearm. His Pandora conjuncts his North Node 2 degrees in his natal chart. And Pandora is self-explanatory. It also has to do with ill-considered actions that result in consequences that you're really not prepared for. His Blow asteroid conjuncts her descendant 2 degrees. Blow has to do with failures and mistakes, and it can also mean physical fights between two people. So that's what he brought to her. Now, it's Mars conjuncts her 8 asteroid 2 degrees. Mars has to do with, well, it brings fire and power to the asteroid, but it has to do with, could be arguments. And 8 asteroid has to do with overreacting to another person's seemingly intrusive behavior. It's almost like she over-dramatized the fights that they had with each other and blew them way out of proportion because of his Mars is involved. So that gives, like I said, extra fire and power to it. Now, under normal circumstances, that would apply. However, his Mars is also conjuncting Osiris, which is the Egyptian god of the dead, and Medea, which has to do with extreme revenge. So this is very disturbing, and the outcome of the situation is just, it's tragic. And like I said before, the more you plug in the asteroids, the more the picture forms. Now, his Mars is also squaring her Jupiter, 0 degrees. Jupiter, largest planet in the solar system, magnifies whatever it touches, and this has to do with rash and impulsive actions. It's in Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, the ancient lord of death, and it's in the 12th house, which rules endings. Okay, so you know what happened there, and it's a very tragic situation that resulted in murder. So I hope you enjoyed this interpretation, and I will be back soon with more Synastry charts. So hit the subscribe button if you're interested in hearing about those as well, and if you have any recommendations about Synastry charts that you would like me to go over, leave me a suggestion in the comment box, and I will be back again soon.